When I got to the age of 10, I'd say my whole world kind of went through a 180. So when that happened, it kind of just killed my inner child, my creativity. I used to like envy people who had pretty much normal lives, you could say, like both parents involved. They seemed like the lives that you see in the movies. I used to envy people like that. But
Right. Welcome back to another episode, KKC Consulting. We're in for a treat because we're joined by Brian Ariel, a BCG consultant and mixed media artist with over 20 million views on Instagram. We're up for an insane episode. Now, Brian, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast.
thank you for having me.
Of course. And I mean, let's just get started. Talk to me about your journey. Right? Talk to me all the way from the beginning.
Okay, so I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, to two immigrant parents from Nigeria. So I'm from Nigeria and lived there for a good minute. I think from a very early age, I was very creative, I would say. I used to draw comic books. I was always fascinated with comic books. My dad bought me comics such as Garfield, Tintin, Calvin and Hobbes, Asterix, this really great comic about Gauls in Europe. Highly recommend.
I watched
And
the movie.
it's good. What the cartoon one?
Yeah, there was a cartoon one. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, it's very. I have all the books, like the whole collection, with me actually
Oh,
right
that's
now.
awesome.
Highly recommend. But I was always creative growing up. I'd say my dad influenced a good amount of that. He always allowed me to explore different endeavors with music as well. I used to play guitar for 5 years growing up. So I was always artistic, I would say. I used to sell comic books to, and somewhat entrepreneurial because I would sell comic books to people in my neighborhood for fun. Um, but after that, so I grew up relatively normal, like as anyone else has. And then when I got to the age of 10, I'd say my whole world kind of went through a 180
Right.
in the sense of like my dad passed away. He had a heart attack when I was 10. So that was like a huge adjustment because he was someone that pushed me in a lot of different directions from like a personal standpoint and just like career standpoint. And when that happened, I just didn't know how to handle it because my dad was very, very close with me. I'm the oldest of three kids in total. And I'd say he was like a best friend for me. So when that happened, it kind of just killed my inner child, my creativity, and desire to just want to pursue art overall. And we ended up moving to Texas. Grew up, I've been in Texas now for 12 to 13 years, live in Houston, and lived with my mother for some time. And then I've lived with my grandmother for a good majority of my life, which is primarily due to the fact that my mom is schizophrenic and has bipolar disorder. So growing up, I didn't know this growing up until I was older, but we had to like move locations. Me and my sisters lived with my grandmother from I think the grade of eighth grade. So from fifth to eighth, I was with my mom, and then after that, I was with my grandmother till college and after. But honestly, it wasn't too bad. I think that whole experience growing up, while it was very painful, and it sometimes still is because I take care of my mother and help her a lot financially, I'd say that it created a stronger demeanor for me. I used to like envy people who had pretty much normal lives, you could say, like both parents involved. They seemed like the lives that you see in the movies. I used to envy people like that, but
Right.
I'm actually a lot more grateful that I've kind of been able to make it through my own problems and tribulations because it made me a stronger person. I feel like I had to mature earlier growing up, and it just allowed me to think a bit more broad and have like the provider mindset where similar to my dad, I always want to give back to people. So whether that's my family who's helped me growing up or like friends that have helped me in many areas of my life. My main motivation is to get to a point where I can freely give back to as many people as possible. And that's honestly helped me get to where I am today with consecration art and also my corporate endeavors.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for sharing all that. Just really quickly before I forget, I wanted to touch upon your point about becoming hardened from your experience. I'm a Muslim, right? And I love just looking at the Quran and understanding the whole passage behind. And there's two Quranic verses that came to my mind personally. There's one that just states that indeed man, and I'm paraphrasing, indeed man will not get what he wants to achieve unless he puts the work in it. And it kind of just, putting aside everything that you hear in the media that, you can always get what you want without hard work or whatever it might be. when you see your religion promoting the idea, it really just inspired me in the sense that, you know what? No matter what I do, if I want to achieve something great, I got to put in the work for it, right? And it can come in so many shapes and form. And the other one that wanted to talk about was like God doesn't burden a soul beyond what it can handle. Just wanted to share those two because your story reminded me of it. I mean, once again, thank you for sharing about it. It's very inspiring in a sense, seeing you be able to overcome that.
Thank you, thank you. Oh, yeah, shout
But
out. Everything's up to thanks to God. So been
of
able to
course,
do.
of course, of course. That's sick, man. Something else I wanted to talk about, not really related to arts or consulting, but I took a look and you took a break from everything and went to go traveling. Do you mind talking to me about that experience?
Mhm. So, I graduated from the University of Houston last year. I studied finance, and after I graduated, I decided to delay my start date because we had options. So, my
Mm.
firm, thankfully, my company allowed me to delay it up to 8 months. So, I decided to take 8 months off for two primary reasons. One, to not feel the pressure of having to rush into work off the bat. I can like explore, just relax. And then secondly, I wanted to really focus on chasing a dream, which was for me concentration. Because I think during my time in college, I was very distracted, not in a bad way, but I tended to try to juggle multiple things. I'd be working for a company, I'd be helping with student organizations, and then I'd be building my own content. And that was a lot of things to handle at once. So I wanted to, for once, just like drop everything and only focus on one thing and see what would happen. So I started off my gap year, or I call it a gap year, a break after
Sure.
school. I went to Japan for a few weeks, which is really cool because I'm a huge fan of anime, as you see the posters
Awesome.
in my background. So I've always wanted to go to Japan since I was like, I don't even know how old, like 8 years old. So for me to be able to go by myself as well was honestly like I felt like I made it in life. Like I was like when I was there, I was like, honestly, I can die happy. I've achieved everything I need to achieve. I'm here. It was a great trip. And then after that, I spent some time traveling out throughout the US, visiting friends, different entrepreneurs and creators. And then I also ran a full marathon literally in January last month. So I spent 4 months of the year of that period just training really hard, running a lot every morning. And then I also spent most of my time just locked in my room making videos. And luckily, it worked out for that period of time.
That's awesome, man. And that kind of takes me to the next question as well, in the sense that there's one video that I checked out you posted, and it said, I want to prove to my younger self that you can chase your dreams. Talked a little bit about that, but do you mind expanding on it as well?
Yeah, so that phrase, it was for a competition I was submitting for, but one of my good friends, his name's Colt. He gave me some advice like 2 years ago where I was interviewing him and he was like, I don't want to be 70 years old on my deathbed. Who knows? But
Hmm.
regretting like the things I never pursued in the past. And you see that a lot today, whether it's like people are like, man, I should have gotten to cryptocurrency earlier. I should have started content earlier. I should have like done a business or like I wish I was alive when blah 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 happened. My philosophy on this is like I don't want to have any regrets with my decisions. So for me, one thing I grew up doing was art. Like I used to draw a lot. I'm still trying to dive back into drawing a lot more. I used to just want to act as a kid, get into media, but I just didn't like life hit me. So I honestly dropped those things. But those are desires that I really want to pursue in the future. And so for me, I didn't want to have any regrets. I wanted to prove to myself that I can actually achieve those goals I set for myself as a kid. And we're still in progress of like setting those goals because it's a long journey at the end of the day. But I think reminding myself of that has allowed me to make decisions where I won't have any regrets, but also pay tribute to like my younger self because I'm fulfilling those dreams that I set as a kid.
Right. And at the end of the day, that's all there is to it, right? Being able to take advantage of every opportunity. Like I was having a call with a friend yesterday, and it was
Mhm,
super surprising because I looked up to this guy when I was in grade 12. Smartest
mhm.
guy I know, only one who got into a target school from our high school. So we got on call after 6 months or something, and he's just telling me like, "Yo, Omar, I've been seeing the shit you're doing, and it's awesome, man. You're inspiring me." And it really like it lit something inside me. I was like, "Oh shit, I'm inspiring the guy who inspired me, right?" And I feel that whole setting out to do something that you're truly passionate about. Like I love talking to people and learning about their stories. I love learning about their philosophy in a sense. And it's awesome being able to go about your day and know that you're constantly trying to achieve something rather than just put it on for later, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
On the call earlier that we had, you mentioned that you failed more times than you could have ever imagined. Do you mind talking to me about how failures kind of reshaped you?
hmm So I guess there's two main categories where I think I failed a lot. One was like on a career perspective when I was a freshman in college. Obviously, like it's hard, like you're a freshman, but I think it was just getting like rejected a lot a few times initially when I applied for things. It kind of was just like, oh, I haven't really felt that feeling before. I don't know what it feels like to be rejected, but after a while, I mean, with reps over time, you get better, and it really forced me to like hone in on like my interviewing, my thinking about my story as a person. How do I stand out in this field of insane talented people? And then on the other lens, I think the more relevant one was just like pursuing art and content creation. I have been doing this for almost 3 years now in about 2 months, which honestly, compared to my friends and other creators I looked up to, that's really short. Like I'm very early on in my career, which is always nice to remember. It's like, oh, you still have like it's a 10-year journey, you know? Like you're not gonna
Right,
get to level for a while. But for me, when you look at the internet and you see people succeeding and you like the pressures of the world today, you're just like, man, like I'm so behind. Like my videos aren't doing well, the views aren't good. And for me, I've tried so many different types of styles and videos, and the main issue was I wasn't able to create something that felt like uniquely me. It always felt like I was inspired by someone else, and I didn't have my own voice with my art. And so in that pursuit of trying to figure out what worked for me, I just like took a lot of L's with like videos I made, but it's all part of a learning journey. So it eventually it worked out because I really focused in on like what I wanted to do and what felt more correlated to who I am as a person. And so failing more times than I can count really helped me develop like where I like get to the point where I am today. So that's like the mention of that phrase.
right. Like I could relate to you just because a long time ago I was chatting with a partner, right? I was 17, I was very nervous. I didn't know what I was saying, right? Like talking
hmm
to a guy who has like my age times two, that's how much years of experience he had, right? I was
hmm
like, shit, do I even do this or do I kind of like chicken off and you know? But there's a mentor, her name's Samar, shout out to her. She really just talked to me and she just mentioned like, I mean, you're gonna make mistakes eventually, right? Whether you make them when you're 17 or 22, you have an opportunity to chat to someone who has years of experience and he offered to come on your podcast as well. Just take it. It's okay if you make a few mistakes here and there. And I feel that's part of the journey as well, right? Like
Yeah.
I've made so many mistakes with the podcast itself. Some podcasts get like 70 views for some reason, and then some get like 600. So,
It's a continuous journey. Like I
right,
still make mistakes every single day. Even at work, I make a bunch of mistakes. Even with my art, I still make tons of mistakes, you know? So it's just learning to bounce back from the mistakes, take the feedback and move on. And
right. I mean, going back to the whole mistakes and dream idea, there was another quote that I just loved when I saw it. You said,
Mhm,
doing what you love shouldn't be your dream, it should be your reality. You talked about it when you were admitting for the stand trend or contest, sorry. Do you mind
mhm.
talking to me about that?
Yeah, so the that mantra, I think I just made it up on the spot, but basically what I was getting at is like if I want to do something, why do I spend most of my day thinking about doing the thing? I think one issue that a lot of people have is that we spend so much time thinking of the thing, but not actually executing on it. And then it feels really nice to like think about it. It's like, oh man, like if I had a business, like that'd be so nice. And you think about how you're gonna create everything, but then like you don't sit down and work towards the business, right? And I think that's one aspect of it. It's like a lot of people today do not execute on their ideas and they're afraid or crippled by it. It's easier to like think about what you want to do versus actually executing on it. And then the other aspect is like it goes back to not having regrets. Like if I have this dream of wanting to be an artist or be a director or something, I have to make what I enjoy feel like a reality. So I need to be actively practicing those acts, actively chasing after that thing. And then it won't feel like it's a dream because it is my reality. I'm actually putting in the work and doing it versus me like one day I'll be in music, a music director or something. And then like I never actually like put in the work to get to that point. So that's what that phrase generally means for me personally.
Right, and I mean, I got, like, 2 role models who explicitly did what you're just talking about right now, like, Alex Hormozi and John Huey, both of them. When you were talking about the whole you love dreaming, but you won't actually put in the work for it, and I feel that both Alex and John, whether it's Alex leaving his consulting job to pursue his gym launch business or John leaving to pursue Stan, it's awesome to really just reflect and look back, whether it's my journey, whoever else's.
100%. Yeah, I consume a lot of Hormozy, and Don's story is also very. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of greats that are like that. Like
There
some of
are.
my biggest inspirations are like Tyler the Creator or like Ye when he was like back then. Just seeing the journey of a lot of successful people is always motivating for me because I'm like, okay, like he laid out the blueprint. Now it's like, how do you do it and apply it to yourself?
Right, and
So
then how can you change it for yourself as well?
but yeah.
Right. Now, I love this talk, but let's dive into the whole professional avenue. Talk to me about, your love for consulting or where that interest sprouted from.
Yeah, so my dad was actually a consultant, which I found out very later in life. So it's kind of funny that I'm on the same path. I didn't know that when I was younger. But when I started college, I wanted to be an accountant originally, and I realized that I hated accounting and it was not worth it for me. And then I asked a friend who went to UT, and I was like, dude, like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, what career options do I have? Because I don't really know what to pursue in business. I had no idea besides accounting. That's all I thought business was. And then he was like, okay, Brian, you got three paths. It's either you do investment banking, consulting, or private equity. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll go with that. Didn't really dive into it too much. I did research on each of them. I was like, okay, like these are cool jobs. So I spent a lot of time recruiting for investment banking and consulting originally. Consulting, I didn't really have too much knowledge on, but investment banking fascinated me because I was like, oh my gosh, like this is really cool. Like the benefits, like the experience you can get. And so I recruited for investment banking, got an offer at Bank of America, interned there the following summer. But as I was waiting for my internship to start, I realized that like, okay, maybe investment banking might not be the ideal job that aligns with my principles because I'm not personally a finance head like that. And also I don't really want to work. I don't really agree with like the lifestyle choices of like some bankers. Like working 80 to 100 hours a week consistently seems scary, and like I also just have a life, I have other things I want to do. So I was like, okay, like definitely need to find another option. Consulting was Consulting is still a very intense job, but the differentiator for me personally was like the work I did. I felt like I could develop a lot more different skills in consulting. There's a wide variety of different things you do, from expert interviews, from building out decks, slide writing, financial modeling, benchmarking, creating surveys. I just felt like I had more exposure and more opportunities to grow as a person, and I felt like it was a lot more fast paced. So when I did a lot of coffee chats with people, I just really enjoyed what they were telling me about versus banking, where I didn't do as much vetting as I did originally. I just applied. Consulting, I put in a lot of vetting, like asking people, having interviews with people. And then I ultimately got an offer before my investment banking internship, actually. So I wasn't even planning to return. I was just like, okay, cool. I'm going to go into consulting the next summer. So, and that's what I did.
Awesome. Talk to me about the whole interview process for BCG. Like what made you decide BCG was perfect for you?
Yeah, so I did a program called Bridge of Consulting at the time. It was just a really cool opportunity to explore. It gave you a taste of what consulting was like. And what sold me was, as honestly, these companies are so good at recruiting kids in college, but they flew me out to Chicago, which is like cool. Like
Ooh,
if you don't really travel, you get to fly out for free and stay in a fancy hotel for like a few days. That's super
right.
cool. As a someone in college without like any money, right? So I did that, and when I was there, I just really enjoyed the people. The atmosphere was great. Like some of the people that were at the conference 2 years ago, I'm actually still very closely associated with today. And it's funny because we actually work in the same office, ironically. So I think that just shows that like these people are generally genuine and nice. And I also just we were able to do like a practice case there, which is really fun. I was like, wow, this is like I could do this like full time. This is really cool. And
Yeah.
it was just the atmosphere, the perks, the people overall. And that kind of sold me. I'm like, okay, I want to work at BCG. And so after that program, we had an interview that was through the program. So first round interview, It was a 15-minute behavioral, and I think no, the first one was a 15-minute behavioral and then a 30-minute virtual case, which I did. The virtual case was interesting, but they gave us like practice materials to practice for a case. Like the virtual case is basically the same as a real case, except you're not talking in person. And at the time, it was a little bit weird, the whole system. I don't know if they still do it now, but it wasn't too bad for me. And then after that, it was a final round. So you got the I think you just expedite to the next round for the internship. So it was just the final round, 2 45-minute case interviews, which I did a total of around 10 to 11 cases, which is really like not a lot. But one of the people I talked to at BCG, they were just like, don't over prep because it tends to cloud your judgment. And you want to
Sure.
develop like consulting is about problem solving, right? So looking at frameworks and memorizing frameworks and doing 50 cases is not going to help me be an innate problem solver because I'm going to be thinking about all the other cases I've done for this interview at
Right.
least. And I tend to overthink a lot. So I was like, let me just do 10 interviews. And then I just crammed like a week before the final round. I did like 5 or 6, and I was like, okay, I think I'm ready. I did the interview, and 30 minutes later, my interview, I got a call and I got the offer for the internship. So
That's crazy. So how are you feeling as soon as you got the call?
I cried. I was in New York at the time. I was staying with my family in Jersey, and I was in the basement. So my family has a basement, and when I was there, I lived there the whole summer. But I remember I locked myself in that basement for 10 days, or like for like 5 days. So I wanted to study for the case interviews. I
Mm.
just needed to dial in and focus. So I did that, and then when I got the offer, I literally was just like so overwhelmed with emotion because case interviews are generally hard, and I thought I fumbled like the second one. I think it was just a hard case. I was like, what is this? What is this problem? It was like some
Right.
European tech company that I had no context on. But I did the interview. It was very emotional for me because it was the first time where I felt like I put in a lot of work and I got the result of my work being put in. Not to say I didn't do that for banking, but banking felt like I was kind of just memorizing things versus
Mhm.
consulting where I really had to know like what I was doing. And I had put in the work and I got feedback and I like had notes. I have a book with all my notes from that period of time. And I really just practiced every single day. And that allowed me to get the offer. And I remember I just told my family and it was cool. I called my friends. Everyone was hyped. I was just so happy at that moment. So it was a very
That's it.
clear memory.
Talk to me about the whole like being super locked in, right? You said you locked yourself in the room for 5 days. And a pattern I realized with you especially is you're able to put your mind onto something and just do it nonstop. How are you able to
Mhm.
do that?
To be honest, I never really followed like I never had advice on how to like lock in. I think if you need to get something done, you have to do it. Growing up, like with like with my family circumstances, there's a lot of things that I just have to do. Like taking care of people is not something that I want to do sometimes, but I have to do it. So that developed the mindset of like, okay, like if I have a test, I have to study for the test. Like there's no way around it. So with consulting and prepping, it was more of just like, okay, if I want this job, I need to put in the work to get it. Like I feel like it's very simple logic that I was just like, let me just put in the work, I'll get the job, and boom, like we'll see what happens. So for me, I get distracted easily. So locking myself in a room, I still went up for food and stuff, but like locking myself in a room allowed me to focus. And it was more of like, I really want this job, so I'm gonna put in the work to get it. I feel like locking in is a term I don't like as much anymore because I've tried to get so many people to lock in. But if you don't want to do work, you're not going to do the work. That's what I've learned with people. I've
True, true,
mentored a lot
true.
of people. Like, there's no amount of like, lock in, bro. Like, let's do it. Like, if they don't want to do the work and believe in this vision, they're not going to do it. So just like, you just have to do the work. It's just like, it's such a problem with our generation. I feel like a lot of people just don't put in the work. So I don't know, locking it in. If I have to get a goal, I'll just do it. That's kind of my mindset. I don't think twice about it. Obviously, if I'm busy, then I have to like reprioritize my schedule. But I try to like dedicate. I try to focus and be very disciplined. Same with a marathon. It's like if I don't put in the training, I'm not going to be able to finish this marathon. And clearly, I finished the marathon because I put in the training. Because you can't just full sprint. You probably could, but you'll probably be injured. So you
Mhm.
know, yeah, that's my philosophy on it.
At the end of the day, you have a set of goals. And if you're not going to want to work on it or think about it or do anything associated about it, it's really, really hard to achieve it, whether it's consulting, entrepreneurship, whatever it might be.
Mm.
And I'll be really honest with you, man. That's one of the reasons I look up to you. Just your mentality when it comes to getting things done in that sense. But
Thank you.
moving on,
Appreciate it.
no worries, man. Moving on, just wanted to talk to you about your future plans. Like where do you see yourself in 5 years, let's say? Sorry, I don't mean to sound like an interview question or anything.
Yes. So the PR answer would be I see myself continuously learning, right? Because that is true. I think in 5 years from now, I'm gonna be doing interesting things. For now, in terms of like actual work, I don't really know what I'm going to be doing. Like, I don't know if I'll be making a company. I don't know if I'll be a consulting. I don't know if I'll be creating full time. I really have no idea. So I don't really have a clear answer on that. But I do know that in 5 years, I do want to have like some sort of financial independence where I don't really feel very stressed about money. I'm not that I am stressed, but like I have like financial independence to an extent. And then I'm confident in what I'm doing in the sense of like for art, for example, I want to be directing music videos or do it like becoming stronger as an editor. I want to be doing more creative things in the future because I think that's just my innate calling. And then on the business front, like I don't know what I'll be doing, but I just want to keep learning and helping people. I just want to be in a spot where I can help people, also inspire people in 5 years. That's honestly the simplest answer I can give, but we're still figuring out. It's hard enough for me to plan 1 year from now, so I just try to go every month. So
True. Fair enough, man. And I feel
yeah.
that mentality is gonna take you great places because when you have that purpose, like for you, it's helping people. I feel you won't ever lose. Like you may lose the motivation, but you won't lose the discipline that comes with it, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's awesome, man. I'm super glad you were able to find that out. Do you feel that business helps you help and inspire other people?
I'd say when I made a video about my internship, a lot of people like chose investment banking because they saw my video. So that was really cool. Like, oh, I did a
That's
job
nice.
and people were inspired to like work in that job. That's cool. I'd say among my close friends and like mentees, I probably have inspired them through business just from like observing me recruit. Like when I was recruiting, if you ask one of my friends, I was like dialed in. Like I'd be doing 40 coffee chats a month. Like I was locked in. I love talking to people and me learning about people's stories. So for me, that wasn't a big deal. But I'd say like recruiting, when I'm in that mode, I'm very like dialed in. Like there, so I guess observing that can indicate like, oh, this guy's like serious. I think with a lot of my friends, like like, if you ask my friends, when I like need to get something done, I will get it done. Like last night, I was tired after work, but this music video dropped and I had to make an edit within 24 hours because I like to do that as a challenge. And I like just worked on it for 5 hours straight and finished it. And like I hated, like it was really tiring to do it, but I just did it. So same mindset with business. I think my attitude towards problem solving or just getting things done in the world of business has probably inspired people to take action. Hopefully, who knows?
Right. I mean, it's inspired me 100%. So I'm sure it's inspired other people and whoever's watching this podcast as well.
But also, I'm not always perfect though. Like for sure, like there's days where I don't do jack. Like I'm not a workaholic because I think a lot of people are always like grind, grind, grind. But like I literally took a month off from like doing videos and like even like with work, like I have like there's days where I just do nothing after work and just chill. Like, but that you need that in your life. So I'm very also work life balance to an extent. It's just what
Mhm.
you want to prioritize depending on how you feel.
Right. And I feel at the end of the day, like I have these calls with my boys and they help me out as well. It's about the idea like where who do you want to become in the future, right? Like what type of job do you want to have? Because I have some boys who tell me that I don't want to go into consulting, I want to do product management because the pay is the same, if not more, and I'm putting in less hours so I can spend time with my family, right? So I'm like, you know what, props to you. That's fair. Like as long as you know exactly what you want to do, that's it's totally calm with it, right? And
Yeah.
I feel having that like mindset with it, you could achieve great things, but also achieve what you want, which I feel is super special because a lot of people, and I guess this is the reason I started the podcast as well, don't really know what they want to do. I guess they just when whoever comes into business, either investment banking or consulting, they don't look into, but there's sales, there's marketing, there's entrepreneurship, etc.
Mhm.
Right,
No, that makes sense.
right. And apart from that, man, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast today. I think we went over everything. Well, not everything, but a lot of things. So I really do appreciate your time. And again, KKC Consulting, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. And all the links are in the description for Brian's Instagram, his YouTube, his LinkedIn as well. And again, thank you, Brian. I really do appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Have a wonderful day, KKC Consulting viewers.